Meet Reed Lance Rosenthal, rancher, #1 best-selling award-winning author, and unabashedly, unapologetically on the right side of the outstanding issues of our generation. But don't try to fence him in. Sometimes his positions will surprise you, because Reed is definitely his own man, with his own opinions. You might love him, you might hate him, but you won't be able to stop listening. Step over to the right side with Reed.
Howdy, listeners from coast to coast, the Gulf to Canada, and around the globe. This is Reed Lance Rosenthal on the Right Side Radio and on video. The Cowboys Take on all sorts of channels. Take a look at my posting on YouTube about my recommendations relative to watching on YouTube. I think you'll get a chuckle. How's that? All right, so today, this is for the video folks. This is update number 3 and 4. On the attempt on Trump. Actually, we're now in the phase of the plot and the cover-up. All sorts of new things have come out over the last 3 days. I almost started this video probably 10 times in the last 3 days, but it kept coming out and I waited. So for you video folks, you'll get the founder's quote and the rant story, which is actually quite humorous this week, at the end of the week, or if I do a sooner update, given the way the floodgates of information on the Trump shooting and all the new questions that are arising are, should we say, bubbling to the surface? How about rushing to the surface? How about a geyser of new information and perplexing thoughts, perplexing questions? So let's get started on this update, shall we? Before we do, I want to remind you that the elections in Venezuela were just held yesterday, and supposedly Maduro, the socialist and the corrupt, kind of like the people we have in the government in the United States right now, he got elected. According to him and his election committee, all handpicked by him, 51 to 44%. Unfortunately for him, the population's not kind of buying that, because the polls prior to the vote yesterday were somewhere 20 to 30% up. That's what the challenger was, who's, by the way, kind of to the right of Maduro quite a bit, free market guy, etc., more Trumpian, shall we say. And they haven't produced any of the ballot sheets or the ballot tallies off the machines. Let me underline machines. And all you people and you county clerks out there, I know some of you listen to me, or some of your constituents listen to me. I can certainly talk to you. I don't know why you are resisting this paper ballot thing. I mean, this is all around the globe, folks. Look at what happened in France. I mean, yes, they blame it on the parliamentary procedures. Really? Le Pen wins the first part of the election, like handily, and then suddenly the leftist groups win the second part and more seats? Really? Maduro is down by 30 points in the polls. They did exit polling in Venezuela. It was 2-1 for the challenger. 2-1. I mean, it wasn't even close. But he wins 51 to 44%. And sorry, we don't have any records off the machines. I mean, you need to give this serious thought. And there's another thing that we all need to give serious thought to. Think about that CrowdStrike story I brought you here over the last few shows. Think about what would happen if that happened the day before the day of the election. I mean, look, anything is possible, and they will do everything that is possible. You can rely on that mantra. Rely on it. So why don't we get out as conservatives and vote early, shall we? Get your mail-in ballot. Better yet, bring it down to the county clerk, watch him put it in the box. I'm going to do that. I don't think you want to be standing around like remember the hijinks there in Arizona last year, and actually 2 years ago, when all the voting machines and the tabulators went down, even though they had been checked and certified a few days before, in 17 districts, happened to be the most Republican districts in Arizona. Okay. Anyway, to avoid that, vote early, preferably in person. But if you have to, by mail. Better to deposit or to bring the mail ballot right to the county clerk who's taking in the votes. And if you can't, then better to mail it. Don't wait until election day on this cycle, folks. Don't do it. I'm telling you, they got hijinks planned for election day. You can absolutely bet your bippy on it. And we got other things too. One other thing before we get into this amazing series of new information on the Trump attempt, the conspiracy. I mean, I'll just say it right out. This was a conspiracy. DailyJobCuts.com. You know how the government keeps telling you, and by the way, this week later on, I'm going to have a rat-a-tat-tat on all sorts of economic things. It'll just make your eyes bug out, what they're telling you versus what is. I mean, you know what is. You know your wallet's a lot thinner, right? You got it. You got it. DailyJobCuts.com. They're telling you what a great job market we have. Well, this site has all the layoffs and all the company or store closings across the country right up to the minute. You got to take a look at that. And then you tell me how great we are doing. All right. So let's start on our update on the Trump matter. So I have a bunch of stuff, new stuff posted on the Trump page, the attempt on Trump page. Homepage on the rightside.radio.com, upper right, click on it. It's organized beautifully. There's probably 70 different sources now, all sorts of sources. I mean, left, right, in between, doesn't matter. A zillion videos of all sorts of aspects of the assassination. And it'll really bring you up to speed. I mean, I don't have time to go into every nook and cranny here and to go into every detail. But all that stuff is on the website for you. I don't say anything I can't back up, or at least if that there's not backup for, okay? You'll have to decide what's true and what's not. That's your job as the listener or the viewer, and I have faith in you to do it. So we have several body cam videos that came off the cops who got to the roof after the shooting. Really interesting timeline. And a really interesting timeline relative to the shell casings on the roof. I brought to you last time that one of the only questions that our vaunted FBI director, Wray, could answer with surety and immediately without some type of hesitation or equivocation was that there were 8 shells found on the roof. Because they're trying to attribute all 8 shots to the 20-year-old Crooks kid, if that's who he was. In these videos, when they first go up there, there's 5 shell casings. This is important. Remember this as we get further on in this update. Later on, 45 minutes later, there were suddenly 8 shell casings. What happened in that 45 minutes when the cops first got there, and then 45 minutes later when all sorts of people are climbing around the roof, including Secret Service for the first time? Interesting to think about, for sure. The ladder, he didn't use a ladder. They're pretty sure he used there was kind of a pipe that went up from the air conditioning unit. He skinnied up that. So let's take that ladder thing off the radar, shall we? There's a video that has now come out, shot by a Trump rally attendee, that is toward the building that Crooks was on. I don't want to call him the shooter yet because I'm not sure. I'm sure he was not the only shooter. I'm not sure he was a shooter even. We'll see. We'll see how it all comes out. But this was taken toward the building that he was on. And you'll see it. I don't know if it's been doctored. I don't know its veracity. It seems totally real. It was obviously taken by somebody who was in a panic and running and all sorts of stuff. But there seems to be muzzle flashes, 3 of them. You'll see why that's important. Out of one of the windows in the building, on whose roof or on which roof Crooks was on. That might explain the new audio forensics that have been done. Peak Prosperity. I had not watched this guy before. Very impressed. I mean, he's kind of by the book, scientific, has a PhD. He now has, and I told you about the audio forensics, and they've been on the site for some time now, a week. But he has done it, he's brought it to the next level. And I really suggest that you watch that, because there were at least 10 shots. There might have been 11 shots. And the first 3 shots, remember this other video, totally unconnected, that I just told you about that has surfaced? The first 3 shots were absolutely from a different rifle than the next 5 shots. Remember the shell casings that they originally, it's right on the body cam, that they originally found on the roof? Another interesting thing about those shell casings, 5 of the shell casings were to the right and on the same slope, the north slope, as Crooks's body. If you're familiar with an AR type platform when you're shooting, it ejects to the right, okay? It might be a little bit forward or a little bit backwards. The powder in each round can slightly affect its direct trajectory of ejection, but it ejects to the right, which means if you're on the north side of the roof, it's going to eject to the same side of the roof that you're on. That's where the 5 shell casings were found. The 3 magic shell casings that suddenly appeared 45 minutes later with everybody on the roof, they are on the other side of the roof, the south slope of the roof, and quite a ways from the body, I might add. Now, how an AR would eject forward, search me. I don't think that happens. I don't think that happens. But that seems to match up, the 5 and the 3 with the 8, the 3 shots that are on this new video that just came out from within the building. You can see the muzzle blasts in the video. In fact, it's slowed down so that you can see it in one part. So this is pretty interesting stuff. I mean, really interesting stuff. Another thing you'll hear in the webcam discussion between the state police and the local officers, who, by the way, I think were great. I mean, from what I can see, they were asking, do you have eyes on the water tower? Oh, I thought the water tower is not part of this. But the cops are looking at the water tower and asking if you have eyes on it. What's that all about? We've also found out that the Secret Service still has not shared the operational plan, nor the people who put it together, nor the people who signed off on it. Interesting. And the Secret Service, we have now found out, there was a 9 a.m. meeting the day of the shooting, the day of the rally, the 13th, where all the law enforcement branches were supposed to get together and discuss kind of final time, operational plans, who's doing what, who has what, etc. Remember, the Secret Service is in charge of everything, okay, despite delegated responsibilities. Everything flows eventually to the Secret Service. They didn't show up. They never attended that operational meeting at 9 a.m. the day of the assassination attempt. Kind of interesting. We also find out here over the last 3 days that the communications equipment in a normal event like this, when you're protecting important persons, everybody can talk to everybody else. There's no wasted time in a relay or having to go through some central spot. And obviously, the United States government has the communications equipment to do this. I mean, obviously, we do have a military, right? They do function like that, right? I mean, if you are Army, Air Force, Marines, Navy, of course you can talk to the other branches. You can talk to the people on the beach, the people at sea, whatever. But at this event, you couldn't do that. Literally, there was also communications difficulty, although it was possible, between the local police and the state police. But there was no communications between the locals, I'll lump them all together, and the Secret Service. Really interesting. Really interesting. There's another video that we've posted. By the way, these are all under the plot and the cover-up. That's That title of that subsection of the Trump attempt page is becoming more apropos by the minute. We also find out that there might have been another sniper team. There's a video, you'll see it there clear as day. This is an eyewitness, takes the video of a sniper team setting up in the bleachers, which were elevated behind Trump. The two Secret Service teams were on the north building to the right of Trump and the south building to the left of Trump. They're trying to tell us, although there is no corroboration. I mean, this information is really being slow walked and tightly held, which kind of raises your suspicion flags right there, high up on the distrust flagpole. We're being told that the South team took out the sniper. Okay, maybe they did. I don't know. We're not going to know that for a while. But in this video, this gentleman who is experienced with rifles is convinced that it was the team that he saw. He thinks it was a United States team. He doesn't know. That was in the bleachers behind Trump. They couldn't really shoot at Trump, from what I understand. I mean, if you look at the pictures, it's pretty clear as the day. But they shot over him and across the crowd, and he's pretty sure that they are the ones who took out the 20-year-old on the roof, the patsy, Lee Harvey Oswald, in this reenactment of JFK. By the way, I've done some research on the JFK assassination because I'm convinced that this was take out the old playbook and dust it off. So remember the shell casings I was just talking about? The magically changing number of shell casings somehow on opposite sides of the roof, out of the ejection pattern of the rifle that was supposedly used, supposedly by this 20-year-old. Well, it seems, and you know, this is all seems right now. This is a huge cover-up, a huge cover-up. It seems that in Lee Harvey Oswald's case, they found in the book depository, which by the way was supposed to be manned with no access, but wasn't. Does that sound familiar? And windows were supposed to, any open windows were supposed to be potential targets. In other words, observation points for Secret Service. I mean, if a window was open, they were on it. The snipers back then, whatever they had going. And Lee Harvey Oswald supposedly shot through an open window. Never contested. Nobody, quote, ever saw him. And guess what they found in the book depository? Oh, they found the rifle and they found 3 shells. You know, it's 3 shots from him that took out Kennedy, according to the official story. Well, how convenient. And do you see any correlation here to what's going on with this dust off the JFK plan that was almost perpetrated on Trump? I do. I see a lot of it. And by the way, 20 years later, there were all sorts of studies done. And we come to find out that the bullets which hit JFK, they didn't keep the bullets. So they couldn't really match it to the gun. You know, somebody, the FBI, LBJ, who knows, the Secret Service, the CIA, they lost the evidence. You'll notice in the webcam shots that these guys, the one thing the locals didn't do is they didn't cordon off the site at least like for 100 feet around the body immediately. And they did not mark where the shell casings were when they first saw them, 5. And later on, when another local guy counted 8. So there's no markings. There's no forensic evidence that you would normally find in a typical crime scene. And we have the preeminent, quote unquote, law enforcement and investigation organization on the face of the earth, the FBI, and the preeminent personal protection agency on the face of the earth, the Secret Service, but somehow evidence is missing and evidence wasn't marked at the crime scene? Okay. Well, this makes you kind of wonder why. I told you last week the FBI was busy hosing down the crime scene literally a day later, hosing it down with power wash. I mean, there's a video of it. The Secret Service was apparently told that the locals, state police and Butler, particularly Butler, was understaffed. Their chief had retired. The assistant chief was in charge. They only had 13 men. And the Secret Service knew all this. But the Secret Service drew the perimeter. Everybody kind of agrees on that. And the perimeter excluded all these shooters' vantage points. The building with the 2 stories, the building that the kid was shot on, the water tower, the gym roof 487 yards out. One of those forensic studies, by the way, measures the time, and it just so happens that the distance is of some bullets is to the roof where the shooter was, or to that building, now that we have this other video that seems to suggest muzzle flashes in the window. The next measurement is to the water tower, and the next measurement coincides with the distance to the gym roof across the road, 487 yards away, which conveniently was closed on Saturdays. Okay. We then had the testimony of Colonel Paris of the Pennsylvania State Police. To put it mildly, and I have it once again on that section of the Trump attempt page, you tell me if you think it's believable. How's that? You tell me if you believe this man. And his testimony was that, oh yeah, there were people in that second story window, but they left to find the shooter when they heard about it over communications. Well, we've already discussed that communications are kind of, should we say, jumbled out there. And who would leave their post? What counter sniper would leave their post? None that I know of. Well, he was contradicted by the district attorney for Butler County, who said, no, they never left their post, which then calls into question, you'll see on the videos, the field of view that you have from that second story window over the roof where Crooks crawled up, according to the official story, took all 8 shots, and then was killed, according to the official story, by a Secret Service sniper team. I mean, there's a lot of things that don't add up here. They don't jive. People are contradicting one another within the same organization, I might add. And it seems that there was a visitor. This is really interesting. And they have it with cell phone pings. You know, these guys are technicians. I'm not. The video, once again, and the article is on the website, right? On the rightsideradio.com. Click the Trump attempt page, upper right. It'll come up. Go to the section you want to see. In this case, the plot and the cover-up. Well, it seems that there were pings. This is unbelievable. There were pings of a frequent visitor to the house that Crooks supposedly lived in. And those pings, same phone, were also picked up literally next to FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. Same phone. Each phone has, from what I understand, a distinctive signature, distinctive ping. But it gets better. The Clarington gun range, where the 20-year-old, quote-unquote, trained, is also the gun range that is used by, hold on your bippy, state police, Secret Service, FBI, and Department of Homeland Security personnel for their range training. Gets really interesting, doesn't it? I mean, it gets really interesting, particularly when you consider that we have now learned that the Secret Service detail was not really a Secret Service detail. The minority of feds on the ground that day were Secret Service. The majority was the HIS folks from DHS. You know, you start coupling this with the 3 extra casings on the wrong side of the roof that suddenly appear, the supposed muzzle blasts in this one video, which is just surfaced, I mean, literally like this afternoon, and a host of other factors, the pings on the phone. And it really, should we say, gets your mind spinning. How's that? I'll be kind. Get your mind spinning. So there's also been some talk about MK Ultra being employed on this kid. Have no idea. I can tell you that I've done extensive shows on the history of mind control, which includes MK Ultra and voice to skull technology, where memory is taken out, new thoughts are put in. You can actually train somebody with radio waves and trigger certain responses, certain actions, certain lack of actions. I have no idea. This may just be a rumor that's flying around. We do know MK Ultra exists. The CIA insists that they haven't used, they mothballed that, all that mind control stuff like 20 or 30 years ago. Of course, this is the same CIA that said they didn't know Lee Harvey Oswald and they didn't have anything to do with the Kennedy assassination. And then 60 years later, I think it was last year, actually, or the year before, we find out, oh, they did know Lee Harvey Oswald. Oh, yeah. And why don't we just say their fingerprints were in many places throughout the JFK assassination. But now we're supposed to believe that all the rest of this is just wild conspiracy theories because they have completely corrected their wayward past, their lack of transparency in the past. Okay. We shall see. We shall see. Also, there are also rumors, and these are rumors. Let me underline. This is not surety. Everything else I brought you, you can see with your own eyes. I mean, that's about as sure as you can get. How it all comes together, I have my suspicions, and you know what my overall thought is, right? A dust off of the JFK playbook. And boy, does it resemble the history of the JFK assassination. That study I told you about just very briefly a few minutes ago determined that there were at least 2 different shooters on the Kennedy deal. And they actually interviewed a guy who confessed to being the shooter on the grassy knoll. This is an amazing story. I'm going to have it on the website later this week, along with the radio show. You should read it. I mean, it's thoroughly researched by scientists, the guy's confession, the whole 9 yards. So, something to keep in mind, shall we? And did you notice that Mayorkas has been strangely silent? I mean, he's avoiding talking about this, getting called to testify at all costs. And I have my suspicions. And Mr. Obama, our friend Barry, has been strangely silent, kind of avoiding the topic. Interesting. You know my thoughts on that particular subject. And, of course, we saw the resignation of Cheadle, who I told you up front was the sacrificial lamb for Mayorkas and Obama. I mean, her goose was cooked all through this plan. She was supposed to take the arrows and then fade away, and it was all supposed to get quiet because, you know, everybody's going to get, shall I say, diverted by all the campaign stuff, the Biden stuff, the step down, the ascendancy of Kamala afterwards, right? This is all going to fade into the background. This is one of their MOs, you've noticed, on all these types of matters, whether it's COVID, whether it's, you know, Wuhan, it doesn't matter. Typical MO. Shut up, say I'm doing an investigation, so I can't talk about it, or the investigation's not done, or I'm not sure, and then, you know, let time drag on and get people distracted. For one, American, I'm not going to be distracted. This is, as in my opinion, as blatant as in your face a conspiracy, even without knowing all the moving parts. We have a multitude of proven dots. We have a multitude of proven visual dots with the videos. We have a multitude of proven audio forensics. I really encourage you to listen to that Peak Prosperity dissection of the audio forensics that they did. It's superb and very well thought out. And he's kind of coming to the same conclusion I am, but kind of from a different direction, which is great. So this is about, look, I could go on. There's been other revelations. Some of them are, I don't know, unfounded. There's no video of some of these, so I'm not going to bring them to you. But everything I gave you today and that I've given you before is true. And where it isn't, like there is no ladder, we now know there is no ladder, I'm correcting it as we go. But these are minor points. The major points remain in place. And the major points, as disjointed as they are in terms of connecting all the really fine lines, they connect on a grand scale. They connect on a grand conspiracy, in my opinion. All right, so by the way, there were 10 witnesses. One last thing. There were 10 witnesses, totally unconnected from one another, who swear that shots came from the water tower. 10 different witnesses in different parts of the Trump rally who say they saw a man up there and shot, and at least one shot came from the water tower. Couple that with what the cops said when they were on the roof. You can hear it right on the video cam. Do you have eyes on the tower? All right. Well, we're just going to keep digging. Look at those videos, read those articles, take a look at those studies. They're phenomenal, the forensic studies on the audio. And think about it. Because as one of the sections on the Attempt on Trump page says down at the bottom, this is just the beginning, folks. This is just the beginning. For you folks on video, read Lance Rosenthal on the Right Side Radio and the Cowboys Take on the video channels everywhere. I will come to you with the next update. If not, if for some magic reason the news and the tidbits stop flowing, then I'll bring you up to speed on whatever has flowed the end of this week in conjunction with the radio show.
Please remember, if you've missed any shows, just click on Show Archive and you'll find all of his shows. We look forward to seeing you here again next week for another episode of Read Lance Rosenthal on the Right Side.